If I talk about boundaries and specifically about how over explaining isn't always a trauma response, if you think about it. And I've told a lot of people to be specific about it and the features of setting boundaries that they do many times and very different. The majority of us. Well, for example, when we're not close enough to the interlocutors, we don't think about the over explaining as giving an example of when you're meeting someone and they prank you, your friends, and you decide to invite them over to the office and have a join the party or the dinner. But then you meet them for real a couple of days before the party, and when they see you, they want to tell you that the winner is over 40, and they say, I'm not gonna make it cheap to you, and I'm not gonna make up a story. I have to go to my Y mile, and I keep believing in family, and family comes first. And that's what Ramadi would say in his young years. Kumenstein and others that were pretty genius. And I was there for the following weekend again and again, and you could see how that all of that information was coded and came from a place of funny, right? This person is giving too much information about why we're not enjoying the party or dinner, and we're not feeling calm when they're sending all of this. Just spec up and to stand up to all of these arguments that they know are okay to have. So that's why you receded to over explaining in a trauma response. Why I tend to do it? Well, I tend to over explain for and other traumatic stuff. And in that way, it's a negative. For you, it's just a connotation around boundaries, and I take immediates up, and I'm not being mean, I'm just being too strict. Or even more rash with the fantasy of the other person and the developments. And that's the reason. And you don't go out. It's indeed. Well, so that's why when we want to say and we want to change our own mind and we want to explain why we're like and why we don't like something, we feel. And we know that we are becoming heartless. We are becoming mean and bad. And you named it. So, one of the kind surprises, and that's why we are feeling guilt, all this over explanation, which is happening because of a grout and because you're healed and setting boundaries. And then you do more over explaining opaque colors, and you feel less guilty for being so bad as we can perceive as that. And one other reason why we keep over explaining is because we're trying to protect ourselves from being demoned. I'm a good person because I'm setting boundary at least giving me to do. Deep inside, I'm a good person. And this is why I give this example of living in a bikini. This person is trying to convince me that they're a good person and a living family, and I'm taking cat by run that. And I'm devoting as much time as possible to spend with you and with me. This is how I look when a good person is cleaned up, smells good and fresh, and I protect my self-image. And another reason is to back because I'm afraid that setting these boundaries will break conflict. I'm afraid it's never ever gonna be back together, and I have this in my own situation with this virtually upset when I have to defend my artistic decision. I have to defend my opinion, and I work hard on the boundaries. And that's so when I understand that I'm not stacked up on all the evidence that please don't say anything other than listen to what I say or the boundary that I'm setting. And I say, don't say anything, negotiate that because it's my self serving strategy. Oleg Cecil. So I'm explaining this version of why I'm meaning to do this. And they will not fight back. Some people don't. Unless you go by profession and go for the kata and in another cookie cutter way. And it's because, again, we're afraid of that 1.5 million price point. And so when we say, sorry, I didn't cut Diego off the dinner party, I'm meeting a friend and a heartache and that Christmas responsibility on the advent calendar that I've just cracked in the Bridgerton box. Bridgerton tone. It's Bridgerton. And we show that we show the past, and he's less hurt, less than possible, less than probable. The boundary between what your responsibility is and my responsibility is a little distorted. And we've learned from previous stick motions that we are responsible for somebody else's feelings, and we need to fix that. And I'm not going to go into that because there's another video, a YouTube library about trauma and responses and about all these emotional experiences that make us real and why we're irresponsible in that way. But you get what I mean, the gist of it. And that's why someone is really stackable. Tune relationship is probably going to push us into the land of misunderstanding and rare connection. And this is where the prefrontal cortex development is really important, because one of the things that he explained to me was why I felt this forever misunderstanding. And this goes back to reinforcing the same cycles. Because if I understand, I'm most likely to over-explain to get out of that feeling and steady. And I felt like an incredible freeing concept, which is just state your truth once. And this way, you don't feel like you're arguing, and you don't feel like you're fighting. You don't feel like you're trying to get someone who doesn't understand me to understand you, which is almost possible. I'm also not trying to force someone to hear me who's not interested in hearing me. That might be really sad because they don't want us to hear at all. They want to be inside. It's frustrating. And I accept it most of the time. And I state my truth in that way. And I've said very simply, very cleanly what I needed to say. Something as simple as, I don't feel hurt. I have a very long and necessary email in my box. And I've done everything I can do. And while I can, the truth resonates. So, it's like hitting a bell. Pew! And let it ring. And zip it and let it ring.